All right, so I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. It says that I need to connect to my router because the Wi-Fi is not working, but I am connected to Wi-Fi. Let's see how long we last. Ladies and gentlemen, this is annoying. This is annoying. When technology doesn't want to work like it should. It's annoying, annoying, annoying. Well, no one's on right now listening anyway. Why are you censoring me? Why are you guys trying to censor me? StreamYard. What did I do? Let's see what's going on here. It's bad enough I'm already on pretty late, and I'm just trying to do a show. I'm trying to bring value to my guests or to the interweb, the internet. Let's try it again. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm Josafat Emiliano, and this is Hey Rockstar. Also, right here we have Miguel standing by to fix technical difficulties. Apparently that's what we're having tonight. But anyway, I know it's pretty late, and normally I get on my show way earlier, and normally it's on a Thursday, but this Thursday I have a lot of things going on. Today I also had plans to bring on a guest, but they couldn't make it last minute, so we might try to change it up for next week. But I still wanted to do a show, and over this idea that has been brewing just in my head. It's something I've talked about in the past, and it's something that I've made light of. We're going to talk about assumptions, or more importantly, this is episode 67, The Sin of Assumption. The sin of assumption. The sin of assumption. I once was working a show back at the Pack, the T-Pack, and they hired me as a stagehand to do a Broadway show, and I was working with the carpenters, and actually no, I was with the video department for that particular Broadway show, basically LED screens and whatnot. And the guy in the lead of our department, he kind of gave us a quick little huddle and said, hey, I want to just kind of talk to you guys before I release you to do what needs to be done. And he gave all the technical stuff and the safety rules to follow by. But then he said one thing, and for some reason, up until then, I have never heard this. But he said, if you have any questions, if you need any sorts of clarification, please don't try to do it, but ask first. Ask and make sure you understand. He goes, do not assume to know how to do it, because when you make assumptions, then you will make an ass of you and of me. Assumptions. It's natural. We all want to do. It's the first thing we try to do, or whenever we meet other people, we naturally make assumptions. Whether it's good or bad remains a mystery. Not really. Let's just go on with let's just go with the flow of the show. I'm going to try to keep it short, simply because I spent like 10 minutes just trying to figure out what the technical difficulty was going on here. If you're watching live, you'd like to say shout out, you want to comment. Tonight, we're going to talk about the sin of assumption, because making assumptions is a sin. This little book was given to me many, many years ago when I first moved here to Nashville. The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's a simple little book, and reading it, I'll read the 4 agreements. The first one is be impeccable with your words, which is why they handed this to me, because as I was talking to someone, they're like, wow, you really are careful on how you speak. And they said, this reminds me of this book, and they gave me a copy of this book. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. And the 4th agreement, I'm skipping the 3rd one. Well, the third one's the one I'm going to light on. Don't make assumptions. And then the fourth one is always do your best. Those 4 agreements will get you in a long, long way. But when I first read about the do not make assumptions, it was more in respect to don't make assumptions of others. First of all, don't assume that your orders, your request, don't assume that people understand you or can even read your mind. I know in the age of passive aggressiveness, a lot of things get lost in transition, especially nonverbal communications. Thankfully, I've learned how to read people. So I read more than what just is being spoken. You got to read the body language. But for those of you who don't know these things, it's easy. If you're not clear with what you want to say, if you are not precise in what you want, and there's something to be said about just speaking what you want. Don't hope that someone else has your best interest in their mind, because everyone, unfortunately, it appears that everyone's in it for themselves. But to get you what you need to be clear with your decisions, with your choices. You need to be. We'll get more on that. But basically, that's the first part of the assumptions. Don't assume that people understand you right away when you say something. Make sure to give them a chance to ask questions for clarification. Now, on the flip side of the coin, don't assume you understand what everyone means or what they say. Be sure you have clarity. Be sure you know the exact way, because if there's a mistake, because you thought, they probably meant to do it this way, because obviously I wouldn't do that way, so why would they? There might be a specific reason why they need it done certain ways. But the other way also in assumptions, and this is the part that hit me the hardest, is don't assume everyone's going to say either yes or no. Give them the right. Give them the choice to say yes or no. Because you never know. Someone would be glad to help you out or glad to give you a yes, but because you assume, no, they'll never say yes to me. And that comes from a mindset of insecurity, a mindset of lack, a mind of just a set of not having enough, or, just not having confidence. Also, don't assume that everyone's going to give you your thing and everyone's going to think your way. But anyway. Assumptions. Where did I want to go with this? There's so many places to go with the sin of assumptions. Honestly, the whole having to wait for 10 minutes to start kind of threw me off my rocker. That I didn't take time to start any start. I just assumed that I know what I was going to do when I got on here on this mic. How has making assumptions, I don't know. I think a lot about, I heard someone say once, when it comes to negotiating a price for your job, or when it comes to trying to seek out a new career, and you go in for your interview, you did something and you brought something that people obviously needed. But however, once you take this new position, once you take this new career path, fear kicks in. And one of the ugly rearing words, and maybe I should just do a whole show on this, imposter syndrome hits. I've dealt with it. I've actually have dealt with it in my current career. But someone, I can't remember which talk show person or which YouTuber mentioned that when someone offers you this amount of money for whatever job you choose to take, and it's agreed sum that you're comfortable with, and you take this job, don't doubt. And you know what? Even if you have that imposter syndrome, don't let that stop you from doing your best, from going and trying it out. Because remember, those people who hired you are now ego invested, because they made the assumption that what you told them, that you can do the job. And if you don't do the job, their career, their ego is now on the line. So don't think that they're going to hire you just to get rid of you right away. Now, of course, if you camp too much in the imposter syndrome, if you camp too much in the, oh man, I tricked them, I blindfolded them. What's it called? I hoodwinked them, and now they gave me this chance. I'm gonna mess it up because I don't know what I'm doing. That's when you take the quote that I love from Amanda Palmer. The difference between professionals and amateurs is that amateurs try their best to make it look like they're not winging it. Professionals, we know we're gonna wing it. However, you gotta also take this in mind. Something in your interview impressed them. Something that you brought to the table, something that you said, the way you held yourself, or maybe the fact that there is a need in your high in demand and the skill that you have is high in demand. You should take that and own that and run with it. Don't assume that everyone's out to wreck you, to discredit you, to just make sure that you fail. If anything, everyone wants you to succeed, because if you succeed, then the person hiring you succeeds, because you make them look better, because you bring a lot of things to the table. This season in my life, I've dealt with a lot of that, simply because I'm in an element that I'm not quite used to or comfortable. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been in an education environment, and maybe I don't have all the needed stuff, and they found a way for me to help them out in this season. But you can't deny. I actually had a student once come up to me, and when I told the students, "Hey guys," and I was the humble coach, or the humble teacher, and said, "Hey, your grades are going up, and I can't take responsibility for that. You got to give yourself the credit because you did the work. All I did was to provide you the tools and an environment where you can practice and fail and try again, and an opportunity to give you confidence to try it and try it and try it." And then one of my students pulled me to the side and said, "Mr. Emiliano," that's what they call me, you got to give yourself credit. You're a good teacher." Like, thank you. I don't know if you guys seen all this up here. All this is just notes of encouragement, of praise from my students who just wanted me to know that I'm so. That one says, "Eres mi profesor favorito." They even wrote it to me in Spanish. But back to the assumptions. Don't be quick to critique yourself out of your momentum. We are our worst enemy sometimes, especially when things are going good. Now, again, practice positive mindset, speaking life, thinking good, but there's also a time when you kind of get over an overinflated ego, and that could be just as detrimental to you as not believing in yourself enough. Where am I going with this, with assumptions? I guess what I'm trying to say is don't think that you are where you're at by accident. A lot of pieces had to move for you to find where you're at. A lot of people had to agree that you were the right person for this position. Also, on the contrary, if you don't like where you're at, don't be quick to assume that someone else's fault. Don't be quick to pass the buck to someone else. Don't take that victim mindset mentality. Take ownership of where you're at. And if you're not happy, it's your fault. It's not the president. It's not the governor. It's not your mom and them and your pop and them. It's not your siblings. It's not your lover. It's not your children. It's not even God's fault. It's your choice to remain unhappy. Don't assume that everyone owes you something. Now, again, I'm not saying that everyone needs to be a multi-bajillionaire. Everyone needs to be daddy more bucks or mommy more bucks. I don't know why I came up with mommy more bucks. What I'm trying to say is a lot of people are in the state they're in because they never did took the time to figure out who the hell they are, who they were created to be. They just assume that everyone was leading them towards their best interest. Heck, I said earlier, everyone is in it for themselves at times. I mean, unfortunately, that's the game. There's some reason why people want you on their side, because it's going to help them win somehow. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm a big team player. I love being part of a great team. But there's also a time where you need to separate yourself and realize, although I am part of this bigger thing, what is it specifically that I want to bring to this table? What can I be proud of and say, I made this. I did this. I succeeded in this. And because this is a success, other people will benefit from this. I know. Everyone's like, oh, Josafat, when you get so into the me, don't forget the Lord. I'm not forgetting the Lord. And again, I'm not going to preach to people. I'm just saying, it's to the glory of God to conceal all matters, but it's to the glory of kings to find them, to figure out what is hidden deep inside. What is that desire that was birthed in you the moment that breath came into your life? You see, just because you can do something doesn't mean that's your passion. It could be something that you can make money off of, or be able to sustain life, or sustain your way of living, so that then you can still keep digging and figure it out, grow and figure out, what is it that brings me joy? How can I help my fellow men and women with my giftings? And if I don't have to worry about the money aspect or the getting or surviving aspect, I can do this with joy, with excellence. I'm at a point right now where I'm starting to meet believers. I'm starting to meet business people. I'm starting to meet people who are constantly telling me, Josafat, don't assume that people don't want to pay you for what you bring. Because I grew up with people constantly telling me, it's not about the money. It's about the love. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Please don't kick me out of the church. But sometimes we forget that God gave us an ability to provide. He gave us the know-how. Who was it? I was just rereading it again in Exodus, or was it Numbers? I want to say it's in Exodus. Whenever God gives Moses instruction and starts telling the people how to build the tent or the tent of sacrifice where all the worship is to be done. But he says, but I forgot the name off the top of my head. I gave this person the ability to create masterful, beautiful craftsmanships. And I gave this other person the ability to create these little images and carve things out of. It was an artistic talent, ability that God said, I gave it to him so that he can make a living. I gave it to him because he can bring something that the people need, can want, can be used, and he can make a living off of this. You see, a lot of us, we are scared to take, all right, here we go. I know where I'm going with this now. A lot of us are scared to receive praises from others. I know I used to be. As a matter of fact, I used to play it hard, hypocritical hard. I used to be the overzealous person that whenever I spoke or I performed or I did something beautifully artistic in the church, I'm just going to use that platform. When someone would come to me who necessarily could not give me a love offering, could not give me anything monetary, but the best they could bring is like, it was awesome. We love what you said. We love what you spoke. We love how you sang or whatever. And the first response was, no. Don't give me the glory. Give it to God. Oh. But deep down, I needed something to as payment, I guess. All right, Jose's monetizing the church. No, that's not why I'm not a pastor. No, and it was until later on, a man who I thought was, I mean, he was. Here's another false assumption I made. I met a guy from Mexico who sang opera. Very well known at the time. And we met through mutual circles. And, I've heard about opera singers. And actually, now working at TPAC, I've met opera singers. And not all of them, or as I assumed that they were. I always thought they were all about themselves, the paparazzi. I am a proud person. Who are you to look at me? Who are you to breathe the same breath the air that I breathe? Wrong assumptions that I had. But this guy was down to earth, humble. But I knew that he would sing in arenas. He would sing before multitudes of people. And it's the traditional when he finished his concierto. People would rain and throw flowers at him and roses, or he would also do things at churches and sing at churches, and people would praise him and just love on him and sing his praises. And he did something different. He wasn't doing what I was doing. Oh, no. Not to me. Another one. If you're going to give a clap, if that clap's for me, it's okay. But if it's for God, you got to be louder. We call that push button praise. Anyway, gosh, I'm getting so much trouble for this. It's when I talked to him, I noticed that he would say to every thank you, to every praise, to every I love you, to every part about it, he said, yeah. He said, I just simply said, thank you. You sang beautifully, thank you. Oh, I was blessed, thank you. Oh my goodness, I felt great, thank you. And he goes, I say thank you because that person genuinely wanted to give me something. And by taking that, I acknowledge that their opinion was valuable, that their words were valuable, that whatever they were able to get was receivable. They brought something that they could have given, and I would accept it all. He's like, every praise, every word of love and gratitude, I took it and pretend it was an imaginary rose, and I would take it. I'll say, thank you. And he goes, and at the end of the day, when I'm by myself, I would take this bouquet of praise. I would go to my quiet place. I will humble myself before the God who gave me breath. And I would say, I know to whom this really belongs. No cameras there. No one needed to see a selfie. No Instagram shot of him bowing down before in his secret place. No, that was his own. He even hesitated to tell him because this is just it's something. And of course he's giving me permission to share this now. I don't release his name, but it spoke volumes to me. It's okay to say thank you to the praises of the people, because you don't know what their struggle is. You don't know what they're going through. And maybe truly, genuinely, what you brought to them was something that they die hard needed. And maybe they're empty pockets, and the best thing they could say is, what you did, what you said, I needed that. It changed my life. Thank you. And me, the best thing I could say is, you're welcome. And then in my own time, my own prayer closet, I humble myself to the one who gave me breath, to the one who gave me voice, to the one who gave me intelligence, the one who mastercrafted me and gave me the abilities to create this stuff. To him, I give my bouquet. See, when you make assumptions of others, you assume that you rob them of the ability. I'm trying to get back to the sin of assumptions. Just don't make assumptions. Don't assume that you know what's best for me, and don't assume you know what's best for others. Maybe it is. I mean, if you're a parent and your child is definitely learning and depending on you, then yes. Well, don't make an assumption. Just say, hey, this is the way we do it. Just don't give them a choice. Just demand obedience until they turn 18 and leave your house. Whenever let's talk about assumptions, because we all make them. I'm not saying that you're going to be imperfect if you make assumptions, but you need to ask yourself why you believe that person would respond this way, why you believe the person would not act this way, why you assume that they would go with this idea or that idea. Because when you just start asking yourself why you believe that, then you start seeing your insecurities. You start seeing your way, your mannerisms, your way of believing, your way of thinking, and that will heavily influence you. And then you got to get out of your own head sometimes. Most assumptions are birthed from your lacking in something or the way you've been hurt in the past and you've never let that heal because you decided to be a victim instead of a victor. I took that from a pastor. In this church, we are not victims. We are victorious. Victors. Before I go any further, Scotty said something here. Salutes, my brother Bezaleel. Am I reading it right? Or something like it, I think. That was the name of the one called to handcraft the beautiful things in the tent of sacrifice, of worship. So let's talk about opportunities. Let's talk about taking chances. Let's talk about starting your own business or asking people if you could do stuff for them, work for them. Some of the best job opportunities I ever got, they weren't even looking to hire anyone. They weren't. I just happened to be there. They saw what I brought to the table and they said, hey, would you like to work here? We pay this much. And granted, I said yes. I would calculate it like where I'm at now, what I need. This outweighs my need so that I can save. And said yes. Now, granted, one job, actually a few jobs, I took just because there was nothing else at the time. And it helped keep me afloat. But even then, I'm a loyalist. Once I get involved and I start to bring down roots, I tend to stick around as long as possible because I become part of the family. And I love that. I love working with a team. I love working with a good family, with a good group of people. Unfortunately, though, sometimes your need outweighs the payout and you're limiting yourself because you got to also remember time is all you have. And when you run out, you get no more. And if you decide to waste all your time on just because you're comfortable in this familiar family environment, well, first of all, you're robbing yourself an opportunity to grow. And second of all, the next person who's supposed to come to learn those skills, you're robbing them of a chance to come and become part of this team too, this growth. I think it's smart for young people to start working straight out of high school, even if it's just a job that's just teaching skills. Today, a student was asking me, Mr. Emiliano, what should I do? I mean, I want a job that's fun and that pays good and this and that. He goes, but I find jobs he goes, what should I do? And I kept asking him, well, first of all, my man, what do you like? What do you find pleasure in doing? Now, if it's all about money, then you got to tough it out and work a job that might be mind numbing, but you'll learn skills. I told him, go. He goes, I'm like, you haven't had a job before. He's a junior. He's like, you haven't even other than like chores at the house, you haven't had a paying job. No, he's a sophomore. Yeah, you haven't had a paying job and learned to survive that. So really, honestly, you have no skills. So I don't know why a big paying job would hire you at this age with no skills. I mean, do you know how to work with people? Do you know how to count money? Do you know how to budget? Do you know how to lead people? Do you know how to manage people? You know any of that stuff? And like, no, not really. Like, I know. You need to find a position that might not pay that much, but look at it this way. You're not just getting the money, you're also getting the experience you need. Don't just assume that because we've been handing everything to you up to this point, so I was going to hand you a cushy job. Because honestly, it's wisdom that you don't get that much. Most people who suddenly get a lot of money with no experience on how to handle it, manage it, wind up losing it, or worse, hurting themselves and others because they don't know. They don't know self-control. They don't know how to manage. They don't know a lot of those things. Or, as I've seen it before too, that people get hired on, inherit a job from their families or whatever, but they don't know how to take care of people. They grew up spoiled or whatever, and before you know it, unless the founder of this business is still there, they just wind up driving their employees away, driving their clientele away, driving everything away because they don't know how to deal with people. So don't assume that you can do this. Figure out a good work ethic. Go figure out something that you learn, and then once you move on forward, try to find another job that pays more or can give you greater skills, can open up other opportunities. Network. Your network is your net worth. Also, don't assume that people you know don't assume that people in your inner circle would be annoyed by you asking for help. Now, I'm not saying go ask for a handout. I'm saying ask for help. You never know who might know someone who's looking for work. Like just the other day, someone mentioned that they were putting in applications and like, hey, I was working a gig. The event manager asked me if I knew anyone who's interested in being an assistant. Oh, and I like, if you're interested, I'll give you the information and you can go run with that. It just happens that I knew someone who had a need and someone else who had another need, and their needs matched. So I passed on the info in that way. But anyway, don't be scared. Don't assume that people are going to tell you no if you have a need. Again, I'm trying my best not to say to look for handouts. We don't want you to be crippled and dependent on people like that. But there are people who might have an opportunity. And I've had a few that I've asked, hey, do you need an assistant? Or do you know anyone who's looking for an assistant or something? And one person who's really high up, I just kind of threw him this question, and he goes, well, let's meet for coffee. Unfortunately, at the time I was working for the lab and I never had a chance to meet him with coffee. But now I'm working where I'm working. I still have a good relationship with him. We text each other now and then. When I see him in person, we catch up bravely, and it's something that I never would have had a chance to meet this man, or even dream to have any kind of relationship with him, unless I had first taken that first step. And if I had assumed that he didn't want to help me out in any way, I never would at least have developed such a fond relationship with someone who's pretty up there in the music industry. Of course, I'm no longer looking for any opportunities in the music industry. I like it. If they offer it to me, I won't reject it. But I don't know. For me, music, I realize, is more of a therapeutic thing for me. It's a way for me to be creative. It's a way for me to express myself. And so I don't necessarily feel like I need to depend on it for music, for money. I have other ways to pay the bills. Music is just a fun hobby for now. Although, who knows? Someday, maybe someone's like, hey, I'll pay you for this. I will take your money. I am not that proud. Same thing with some of my voiceover work. I would love to have more of that. But most of my work as a voiceover has come through just people who I met and just talking to them and just like letting them know, hey, I'm trying this out. And they're like, hey, actually, I know this person. They give me an email and I emailed them. And before you know it, I'm reading a book in Spanish for children. I'm doing voiceover commercials in Latin America. Things I never thought would have done. That's another thing. Don't assume that you can't do it. Don't assume that you can't do it. Don't assume that whatever is assigned to you is an impossible task for you. Especially as a creative, shoot your shot. Let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about that. Don't assume that that person that you're sweet on probably wouldn't like you back for being you. You know, and I'm not going to get too much more into that, just other than I once read advice of a father to a boy, a cowboy to his cowboy son. And I honestly don't remember all the stuff, but one line that stick out. He's like, teach your son to always talk to the prettiest girl in the room. When you walk in the room, find the prettiest girl and go up and talk to her. It's like, that's good advice. Whatever becomes of that, just, and again, Josafat, quit being so superficial. No, what I mean is, because beauty is different for everyone. Honestly, it is. Now, there's some people who have qualities that everyone finds attractive and admire. But honestly, find the person you find attractive. Look for the person who you find attractive. The most attractive person in that room, go up and talk to them first. If you're single, if you're not looking. I mean, if you're looking, you're single, you're looking, do it. Now, if you're tied down, I'm sorry, buddy. You're stuck with that one. Sorry, girl. He's yours. Don't assume. Oh, man. The sin of assumptions. You know, if you truly love someone, if you truly respect a person of the opposite sex who you're interested in, then they deserve at least the right to say yes or no. Don't assume that they're going to say yes, and don't assume that they're going to say no. And if they say no when you're assuming yes, take it as it is. Don't assume it was a fluke, or don't assume that they're like, oh, babe, maybe, you know, she didn't quite say no. She just said not right now. Gentlemen, now I can't really talk deep into philosophy, but one thing I have learned is that the señoritas really, really don't want to hurt your feelings. Our feelings, I guess I'm including that. And they don't want to be painted in the light as the bad guy or bad person. So they will never, ever, I mean, some will, but for the most part, they will give you hints. They will try to say something else like, oh, I have a boyfriend. Oh, and maybe they do. If they do, bravo. Respect that. Or I'm in the season of waiting now. A lot of church girls throw that at me, or throw that at us. Oh, I gotta pray about it. You know, whenever I say I gotta pray about it, it means I don't want to. But you know, let's make it spiritual, so I don't look as a bad guy for saying no. Now, honestly, life would be easier if they were just cut throat dry, and say no. I just don't find you attractive. Like, cool, sucks, but cool. I can mark you off my list, because ladies, we do have a list. Oh no, I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail for that one. We do have a list. Don't assume you're the only one we think is attractive, and we find others attractive for a whole different thing. Deep down, simplify it. All we were looking for is, do we think you're pretty, and are you nice, and are you single? Yeah, you gotta be single. Are you pretty? Are you single? Are you nice? If you fit those three, you got a good chance of a guy of finding a dude who's into you. But ladies, honestly, if there's any advice I can give to you, is you do more damage by not being forward with us and just flat out telling us no. And even if you want to justify yourself and not be the bad guy, you can say, I don't want to hurt you, but honestly, I just don't see you as someone I want to be romantically involved with, or just I don't want you to be the daddy of my kids, basically. And by doing that, you give the gentleman a good cry, maybe, but then they can move forward. They can move on to the next girl on the list, the next nice, sweet girl who's caught our attention. But anyway, assumptions, gentlemen. Honestly, don't assume that she's gonna say no. And mostly, that's what I'm saying. Don't assume that she's gonna say no. At least ask. At least ask. All right. And what else do I want to talk about the assumption part? Yeah, don't assume. Okay, so those are good things. Don't assume that people aren't willing to help you out if you ask. Don't assume that they want to say no if you ask. And most importantly, don't assume that you are not qualified. You might be in the wrong profession, but that doesn't mean that you are not qualified. Everyone has something to bring to this life. Everyone has something in them that can help out the next generation, that can inspire the next generation, that can reach the next generation. We were created to be fruitful and multiply, take dominion, and to leave for the next generation. The fact that we are mortal, the fact that we have an expiration date should be enough to light a fire in your butt, under your butt, to get up and do something with your God-given abilities. And don't assume that no one wants to see that. Don't assume no one wants to hear your story. Don't assume no one wants to see you or see your work. Don't assume nobody wants to hear your song, read your poem. Don't assume someone doesn't need that hug that you can give. Don't assume that someone doesn't need you to stand for them, to pray for them. You have quality. You have value. If anything, assume that you qualify, that you are able and capable to do it. And if someone hired you to do something, do not let that I always forget the word. Don't let I always forget it. 1000% a straight no is so much better. Yes. Don't there, imposter syndrome. I don't know why I can't keep forgetting that word, because it's unnatural for me. Don't be a victim of imposter syndrome. If someone hired you for a job, know that they're ego invested, so you run with it and you do what you can with it. Be the best you and have fun with it. And if you get paid to do it, mejor, even better. Bring your flavor, but also work on becoming the better version of yourself. Work on developing excellence in yourself for that next thing that's going to come up. And eventually, you don't assume that you cannot start your own business corporation, that you cannot make a lot. The only difference between the guy making $100 a day and $100,000 a day is the guy making $100,000 a day has access to information that the guy making $100 a day doesn't have yet. And don't assume that you can't find that information for yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to cut it off right there. Thank you to Spectral Bonsai, who added a few comments here and there. This was just a quick, lighthearted episode 67. The sin of assumption. I could have gone more into depth, but again, earlier, the technical difficulty that I was having really threw me off. But this was Hey Rockstar. Hey Rockstar is a storytelling platform where I share stories and I also bring guests who share their stories. Stories that are filled with value. Value that you can take and use to help you detach from failure, take ownership of your life, and develop the right mindset to become the rock star of your industry, of your life, of your dreams. Take it from me, take it from Miguel, everyone's favorite lovable puppet monkey. We are recording live in front of a virtual audience from Nashville, Tennessee. I guess we'll just go in and bring it to a close. Thank you for letting us into your hearts. Rewind. Thank you for letting us into your homes. Thank you for letting us into your cars. Thank you for letting us into your hearts. So until next time, much love and many blessings. And don't make assumptions.